Welcome to The Road Less Traveled. I'm your host, Evan Drisner. I'm here with a good friend of mine, a business lady in the city, Tracy Arno, with Essence Talent Solutions. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good to have you. So we've been talking throughout the show with different people, kind of looking at not only your journey to where you are now with Essence, but what you've kind of learned on the travels throughout that. So you didn't start as a recruiter, right?
No.
So you graduated from high school, and I feel like I know too much to be talking, but you moved to Calgary, right? So Why did you move to Calgary? What was Calgary?
Yeah, so I had a business admin certificate, and I was pursuing another career in a completely different industry and scope, and I had to move to Calgary to grow. So I kind of hit my capacity here, and then for me to grow into another senior leadership role, I had to move to Calgary, and so that's what I did.
So what were you doing?
It was in retail.
Okay.
A national brand.
So with doing retail, I can imagine has a lot of lessons that you would learn in that, because you're dealing with people all the time, and now you're dealing with people specifically looking to hire them. But what were you doing? Like how was that?
Well, I had more of a senior leadership role in retail, so I actually overseen quite a few stores and quite a few people, and then I also had a training manager type of aspect role with that. So everything that I've always done with my career since I've been in management, since I've been 18 years old, has been around people. Mm-hmm. So that's always been my love, that's been my focus, and so just really about identifying good talent, managing, coaching, supporting, leading, growing, educating people, and dealing with conflict resolution. And there's a lot of that when you're dealing with people and retail. So so I learned a lot in my first career, but it really was just it was just time to leave that career. I moved back home when I went to Calgary when I was quite young. I had a young son. It was a very 60 to 70 hours a week. It was quite difficult with just the two of us, so we decided to move home, and then I completely changed my careers.
So you've glossed over it pretty quickly and well, but so you're a single mom in a city with no family resources, managing a lot of people, traveling. What was that like? Like, were you just exhausted for 5 years? Do you even remember it?
No, I don't remember it. But you're young and you're resilient, and I was motivated and I was driven, and I was given opportunities that most people don't at that age, and I was just taking them and running with it. So, I learned a lot, definitely the education of hard knocks. But it helps mold me of who I am today and the work ethic that I have. And I will never take it for granted about how much I did learn during my time.
Was it work ethic specifically that you think kind of propelled you, and when you're working with staff and hiring and managing people, what were the traits that if you look back now at that time, what were some of the lessons that you can attribute now to your success? Was it just that you learned early you had to work hard, or?
Yeah. So I remember my first performance management review, and I was 20 years old, and I thought I was doing so good. Our stores were doing fantastic. I turned them around. Dollars were amazing. I was hitting all records. I was in the company, top 3. And then the performance manager, my leader comes down and she talks to me, and I think I'm getting this excelled review. Well, she comes in and she's like, no, Tracy, you have so much to learn. And I'm 20 years old at this time in my first management job. I had no idea what to expect. And it literally, so if I thought I was a 2 or a 1, she thought I was a 4 or a 5. So for 2 days, we sat in the back room and she discussed my performance and what I need to do next to be a better leader. So, I had the choice at the end of that to say, screw this. This is ridiculous. How could someone ever talk to anybody like this? And how did I not know? How did this all of a sudden just happen? Or I could have said, swallowed it up and learned and move forward. And so I swallowed it up, took what she had to say, and I grew. And it was a very pivotal moment in my career to make that decision and to move forward that way. But it also how I felt at that moment was I would never, or hopefully never, make anybody else feel that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's always been my goal, and I'm not going to say I'm the best at it, but is to communicate and be transparent about performance and about growing and about learning and about being better, because I don't want anybody to feel the way that I did that day.
Yeah.
2 days, actually.
Two
whole days.
I think it's some of the biggest lessons we can learn as we lead people is some of the things that affected us in a negative way and not projecting that on others. But do you still look back, like, do you find yourself kind of being a natural processor of yourself now? And did it start then when you thought you were like the best person they had, and all of a sudden they tell you, whoa, you're not?
Yeah.
Do you still feel that sometimes? Like, maybe I'm not where I think I am. I need to do some reflection, need to do some checks?
Always. Like,
Yeah.
that's always. And I mean, I learned that in lots of seminars and conferences and conversations that I have about just being a stronger leader and being better at being better at what I do and who I am, because I'm always trying to grow myself internally and be a healthier and stronger person, is that you always have to listen to what you're doing internally, and just how can you be better, or what can you do better, or did I do that right? And then of course your inner critic comes in, and then your inner critic is telling you all the negative stuff. But I mean, then you talk to your inner coach, and your inner coach tells you that, you know, it's okay, you can move forward. But I'm still really hard on myself, you know, as probably anybody would say they are.
Well, I think there's I think anybody that's running a business, wants to run a business, or just in leadership, even in the not-for-profit organizations, when you're in a position where you're leading something, and people are responsible for what you're doing, I would question anybody that doesn't question themselves, and at least checks and make sure they're doing. So you're in Calgary, you're working retail. Well, fast forward now, obviously, we're in Saskatoon, but why'd you come back? What brought you back?
Yeah, well, it was just strictly family reasons. Like, I mean, I was working, like I said, 70-ish hours a week. I was on the C train 3 hours a day, because where I worked, or where my home was, and where my daycare was in two different spots. And when it just was logistics and family, with no family, and where your support is, that's what happened. So, yeah, I decided that, I learned a lot, but if I was even to grow where I was growing, I would have to need a better support system. So I just decided that it was probably better to move back to Saskatoon. So I moved back to Saskatoon and bought my first house.
And did you stay in retail?
No.
That's when you changed?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you glossed over it a bit again, but like, I can't help but picture you now on a C train for 3 hours a day.
It was fun.
With a little one.
Yeah.
No, like you're sick, you have to work. Your kid's sick, you have to work, you have to figure it out. Like, how stressful was that? Like, if you look, can you even picture it anymore? Like, there had to have been mornings where you're like, this is the worst. Like,
oh, and I mean, there is. And I mean, you can talk to my employees, they felt it. I mean, like, when I was stressed, they were stressed, right? And so that's one of the things of just being healthy now. Like, you're always trying to be better, and to make sure that you are taking care of yourselves in so many ways, so you're not stressful, and that you're not that stressed person at work, because your team feels it as soon as you are, right? And I mean, you don't make the right decisions, or you make, your conversations, your communication is not where it needs to be a strong leader. So it's just something about, it was a real learning lesson. But I think
such a young age,
yeah,
too.
but I was going to say, I was
start.
young.
Yeah.
So I was young and I was naive, and all I was doing was learning. So, I mean, if I probably wouldn't do it now. I mean, It was funny. I was just in Calgary this weekend, and we were there, and for a hockey tournament. So we went there on a bus. So we wanted to go to the mall. And my husband thought it'd be super fun to go on the C train. I'm like, I am never going on one of those things again, just because it's not fun. I mean, I remember that.
Yeah.
So it was funny, because I could actually walk to work, but just because of daycare and that type of thing, I had to go, down south, and then come back up north, and so.
That is insane.
Yeah. But I mean, it was good. Like, I mean, you have to take everything. I mean, I wouldn't be where I was today for not everything that I've learned to be at this point. So
yeah, absolutely. That's the whole premise of the name of the show is it's not just one road that somebody takes to become where they are, and in fact, and it's all the little sceneries that you're seeing and you're passing through, and it's interesting. So you end up in Saskatoon, and you said you didn't stay in retail.
No.
So did you have a job when you moved here, or you just moved here for the resources and figured you'd figure it out?
No, I had a job. I switched. I moved. I moved for a completely different, like just as, I shouldn't say just, that's, I moved for a sales role.
Yeah, don't say just. That's my bread and butter.
I'm like, sorry, Evan. But it was more of an outside sales role, and I really wanted to. What I wanted was to have more autonomy. So when you work for a national brand or an international brand, it is really focused. Dictated. It's a dictated type of culture, right? So, and I was always defying that, and so I wanted to have more autonomy on what I was actually doing. And I'm still quite young. Like I was 24, 25, somewhere around there. And so it was just time to do a career change and to see what I could do with that. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's what I started. And so when recruitment came about is because I was laid off from my sales role because it was more of a kind of they were bought out and it was more of a seasonal thing, a whole bunch of reasons. And I've never been laid off before. I had no idea what that even was like. I've always had a job since I've been 14 years old. So I had no clue what this was about. And so I was really reflecting, okay, well, what am I good at? What do I want to do? And what have I done up to this point? So, and I'm like, people. It's all about people. And there was this ad with a national recruitment agency that said, hey, we need this recruiter. I'm like, well, I can do that. Like I have recruited hundreds of people, and I have retained and coached and mentored and, and just really worked with people. It's always about people. Yeah. So, and that's how I started recruitment.
That's interesting. So as soon as we come back from the commercial break, I'm with Tracy Arno with Essence Talent Solutions, and we're going to get right back on it, where you're now working in the recruitment industry, and we're going to see where that journey took you. So thanks. Welcome back to The Road Less Traveled. I'm your host, Evan Drisner, and I'm with Tracy Arno with Essence Talent Solutions. So we just, if you're just tuning in, you want to make sure you catch the rerun on this because you're going to miss kind of the build up to this. But so you now moved back to Saskatoon, and you've left retail, you got an outside sales job, and now you're looking at recruitment. So you see this ad saying, looking for a recruiter, and that's not what you've done, but you thought you could?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, I can do this. Why not? So it was interesting though, but it was in a time in Saskatoon where Saskatoon and was, everyone did everything themselves. Like they didn't really understand what a service was. And definitely, they were the general manager, they were the HR department, they were the marketer, they were the finance team. So they didn't really comprehend on how to pay for a service. So I was, on my first day, I was handed the Chamber of Commerce membership book, and they said, go at her. I was like, go at her, do what? Find a client. Okay, I got this. So
it was like that, like just cold, first day.
Yeah, straight cold. And so there was business. I shouldn't say there wasn't, but it was really an agency type of feel. So it was like temporary contracts. So this is it was an initiative across Canada that they placed this role into this organization. So so I was educating myself and learning best practices on how to do this role. And educating companies in Saskatoon and in Saskatchewan actually on why the value of this service, right? Because it wasn't really well known, and if you think about our industry, in perspective, like if we have 3 recruitment firms, we might have 5 in Regina, but then we have 50 in Calgary and 400 in Vancouver and 1,000 in Toronto. That's just the way that, and
1 million on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and it comes, well, LinkedIn wasn't here yet. And oh no, this is like pick up the phone book and call people. This is no technology. And so, And but it really came like, but the UK recruitment, like you don't find or look for a job without a firm. So I mean, it's just the understanding of what we do and the value of what it is. So I started this role, and then very quickly, just because of changes, I ended up running the branch, and then I had to take over the temporary contract and permanent. And I have never done temporary recruitment before. And I tell you, I will never go back to it.
Well, that must be a little different, because like I can only imagine that if you're hiring temporary, the person that's looking for temporary, how solid can that person be if they don't want anything long term?
It's not, no, there's lots of reasons. I mean, they could just be in between roles. They could be just changing, like they might be leaving the area, you know, they're looking for a transition. There's a whole bunch of reasons. It doesn't necessarily have to be about work ethic, for sure.
Okay.
So I ended up doing that, and then what happened was that actually I ended up running Saskatchewan. So I ended up running Saskatoon, ended up running Regina, and so I was kind of going back and forth with both cities and just running both branches. And that's just where the leadership side comes in. Like I think, you know, of course the people side is I think where my strengths are, but it's just the leadership side in general is where I've always been. Like I've always been in a basic, you know, general leadership role. So what happened is in this time though, like, I mean, because I was educating and trying to educate myself, I had to build a contact, you know, base. And so I started volunteering in Saskatoon and just being part of committees and part of different communities and doing whatever it took to meet people, right? Because I was in a career that was kind of in the box. Like you go somewhere every day and you never leave it. And then you come into something where all I have to do is be on, like hit the road, you know, or hit the pavement, I guess is in lingo. So I was starting to get more and more involved with the Chamber of Commerce. And one of the committees I was actually chairing was the small business growth. And me and my co-chair actually went out to 10 businesses and asked them, you know, if you would ever do anything again, what would it be? And they gave us the same 5 type of points. And then we were working with this group of people. And I remember sitting around the table, and there was a whole group of entrepreneurs, and they were really small businesses to, you know, kind of growing businesses. And actually now today, some of them are quite large. But at that time, I looked around the table and I thought, if they can do this, I can do this. So that's how I went from going from a national brand to starting Essence. Yeah. And Essence is I solely built Essence on fit and culture, because I really truly believe you need to understand the human to make a good fit. And it was all about partnerships with our clients. So it was a little bit more specific. We were, you know, I started with what I knew, and then as the years have gone by, I've just started to be very, very particular about our process. And I think we're getting better at it.
Well, you're growing for sure.
Yeah, we are.
Because it started with just you, and now you have 3.
Yeah. So there's as of Monday, there will be 3.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, you talked about it a bit.
Yeah.
And I've heard it often, not only in our community, but in communities across Canada, that relationships are a big part of people's success, whether it's a mentor or someone connecting them to somebody that can help them grow their business. Or you have always been, and still are, very committed and connected to the community. In associations, you do a lot of volunteer work. How was that strategic for you? Was it natural for you to want to just kind of be involved, be social? And how did that help your business?
Yeah, lots. So first of all, it was strategic. Like at the beginning, it was strategic. Yeah. And but then as time went on and I really got a fulfillment of this, like it was kind of a balance of, and I guess like my whole entire life, like since my first child, I mean, like I was always volunteering and being part of the associations and not just being like, you know, the hockey parent mom, but I was like part of the executives and, you know, that type of thing. And just because if I wanted something to be better, I had to be part of it, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, if you want to there's always about input, but there's always action, right? And I felt that if I could be more part of closer to the action, I can have more input. So it really started with that. And then, so with the community work and the volunteer work, it really progressed throughout the years, but I'd have to say it's a whole second education. So I learned more around those boardroom tables than I have learned in my education, because you're dealing with so many different types of people and different levels of people and different perspectives. And I learned something from everyone around those tables. And so whatever board I'm on or whatever committee I'm on, I'm always learning. So it's more of it's not strategic anymore. It's more of I guess it is strategic, but it's also not as intentional as it was. I just get a lot of fulfillment out of it.
Yeah.
And it has helped my business for so many reasons. I made the connections.
Of course.
I mean, every day I get referrals based on somebody I met. I think it's helped my reputation and just the respect within the community. But it's also the way that, I mean, some people do a hard cold call. This is the way that I sell, right? And so it's just building our brand. But most of all, how much I've learned from these people has helped me be a better person. And when you talk about mentorship, like, I mean, you need a ton of mentors. Like, I mean, yes, everyone says get a mentor. Like, put a plural on that because you need them.
Mentors, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would consider you a mentor for me, even though you would hate probably being tied to that. But I still remember being one of my first boards that I sat on was the chamber. And you were on that board, and there was a lot of people that I could just take a lot of wisdom from. And you guys have always been so good at, I think it's just our province in a way. Like, people are just willing to help and willing to connect people as long as you see there's some value in that. So you're in recruitment, you used to be in management of people. There's a lot of similarities. It's people. What would you say are characteristics that, you know, if you see it in somebody, you know it's going to be a successful person? Not even just for a role, but just in general.
You know, and I can't answer that. It's different for every role. Like, it's different. It's just so much about the fit, right? Like, I mean, like I say, like, everybody has a talent. So, you know, some people sing, some people can play music like you can. And I can't sing a note if my life depended on it. I can't act, you know. Everybody has a talent. Mine is just being the intuitive part about the fit side, like, you know, matching someone and just keeping in perspective, not just what the client wants, but what do these candidates want, and hopefully have that partnership together. So it's not just a one-sided relationship, it's a two-sided relationship. So that's kind of, I feel that's where my talent is. And so just my perspective and my process is to really just sit down like this and have these conversations and ask a whole bunch of questions about people. And I just, and it's personalities and, you know, attributes and competencies and skills and all the lingo words and, you know, things that you need to look for. Every situation is unique. And so that's what you just need to look at.
You'd have to be a little bit intuitive dealing with people selling themselves to you all the time.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
And you know what, it's just the gut, right? I mean, it's just, you got to, you know, when you talk about, you know, check yourself every once in a while, you got to check your gut. And, you know, every time I have faltered from checking my gut or not listened to it, I guess, it hasn't been perfect. And I'm always looking for perfect, as everybody else is in themselves. But I mean, when you get the perfect match, it's just, that's my success.
So is that something you feel more comfortable now, being an established business person, is kind of that listening to your heart almost a bit, like your gut? Like, it's such a bad example, but last Friday, the Black Friday, I need new couches. I decided.
I feel like this isn't going to be the same example, but okay.
No, but I decided I need new couches. So then I panicked and made my wife go to stores, and she didn't want to be at them. And I felt so rushed to get couches, but I didn't like any of the couches. So finally I decided, okay, I don't need couches that bad. And I listened to my gut and probably saved a pain in the butt buying a $5,000 couch set that I was going to hate for the rest of my life. Obviously yours is substantially different, impacting a business, impacting your reputation. But is that kind of your guide? Or is it all, I guess what I'm asking is, how much of your job and jobs you see in general in leadership is art or science? Like, is it skill or is it?
Yeah, good question. And, you know, so there, I mean, you need the skill, but you know what? You also need you really need the personality,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, you can, like they always say, you know, you can train for experience and skill, but you can't train for personality, right? And fit. So, I mean, and when you say skill, there's hard skills and there's soft skills. So, I mean, if you, it's the whole, even the thought process of sales, right? Like, I mean, if you can sell and you love what you're selling, it doesn't matter what you're selling, you can learn the product, right? So,
true.
but I mean, then there you come in, I mean, in leadership roles, there's dynamics. Like, I mean, there's like, if you don't if you're going into a public company and you don't understand, you know, the governance of it and the reporting, then it won't work, right? So, I mean, there is both that you need to look at, but you need to measure what is most important and kind of take everything in consideration and weigh your options.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being my guest, Tracy.
Thank you.
That's awesome. It's a pleasure having you. And thanks for watching on Shaw Spotlight. Stay tuned for future episodes, and we look forward to having you back.